Ivy Valentine subscribes to Mark Yoon, so should you. Enjoy your treat!
It is New Year's Eve, and as Sia said, 123, 123, and today we got a good video for you. So what I want to talk about today is something that is a little bit boring, but hopefully can shed some light on how things work behind the scenes, and that is marketing and sales. Now, everyone's eyes just rolled over if they're not into finance and just got out of here, so thanks for clicking on the video anyway, but there's a lot of background noise that's involved in this, and I really feel that like some people should get on a different plane when talking about this kind of stuff, because it is super important, especially to certain conversations. So let's talk about it in context of Soul Calibur, and I just want to jump right in and start talking about how things are calculated. So we've talked about this in other videos before about budgeting and stuff like that. But the main concern that I wanted to talk about today was the actual market value and market shares of like how these games are calculated and what is seen as profitable and what considers like a sale or not. So we know that sales are calculated firstly by units shipped, which I've talked about in a previous video. And a unit shipped is just a company or a big box store ordering directly from the manufacturer sending the units, and they're often at not retail price. They sell them at MSRP once they get to the store. I think I made a mistake in my last video by mentioning that. But anyway, so the units shipped are bought at market value, and then when they actually get to the store, then they're put as MSRP or whatever the store is going to. But the store owns that copy. So when you go into like a GameStop and you purchase a game, you're actually not purchasing it from the manufacturer, you're purchasing it from GameStop because GameStop owns that game. Now, when they upsell it to you and then you then buy the game and now you own the game, that money has already been in the manufacturer's pocket, which is why different retailers can have different sales without having to actually contact the marketing department or the manufacturer. So if they say like, we're going to put this in the 4 for $20, they don't have to actually go through them, except for Nintendo. Nintendo's a whole different beast, but when we're going through those direct things, so then they're saying that they're going to sell this to make inventory space. And why would you want inventory space? Inventory space in retail is super important because it's all monetary value. So if you're going into a store and you see a shelf, or you see something on the wall, or you see anything that's displayed anywhere in the building, they actually have market share assigned to that. They have market value assigned to that. So that wall, we can say, is a $10,000 wall, which means if you sell everything on that at normal price, you make $10,000. That way you can justify the profit, blah, 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 blah. So when you have sales, it's a different story, because sales is lowering the actual value of what the company paid for the game at market value, which means that whatever profit they lost, they're actually just using that to free up space so that they can actually sell that space. They're selling the space, they're not necessarily selling the product, because they already own the product, if that makes sense to you. So when somebody's saying like Soul Calibur, let's say 3 years ago, crossed the 2 million border, or 2 years ago, whatever, it crossed the 2 million sales border. What that means is that out of all the stores that actually purchased units shipped from the manufacturer, they calculated how many units they actually shipped. And to that date, they had 2 million units shipped. Now, if it's in a certain period of time that a game sells out, let's say Soul Calibur 7 comes out and GameStop orders a bunch from Bandai Namco, or they actually get that all shipped to them, and now they're ready to sell this and they're ready to market this and have this space, and they sell through it and there's still a demand for the game, they're going to make another order. Now, when the company makes another order, that actually does count as more units shipped to the company. But once they just are going through their own inventory, when people are trading in the game and then they're selling the pre-owned copies, none of that counts as a unit shipped. That just counts as profit for the company that's actually selling it. So if you're going to talk about Soul Calibur selling 2 million copies, that means that it was just physical copies that were shipped from the manufacturer directly to big box retailers. Unless you personally ordered from the manufacturer, then you're going to get counted in that, but not necessarily the case, because usually units are measured in tens and increments of tens and not actually ones anyway, not direct units, because they negate and they market for losses and stuff like that and damages. But with the boring numbers out of the way, so when we're talking about 2 million sales directly for Soul Calibur, that's not including digital sales. There's only 2 companies that actually count how many units are sold, and certain companies don't actually let that stuff be known. So such as Steam or Epic or the digital marketplace stores like PlayStation Store or the Xbox Marketplace or the Nintendo eShop, those stores don't actually calculate, well, they calculate behind the scenes, but they don't let that known to the public, like how much the sales actually are. So the charts like VGA and stuff like that actually calculate sales don't have that information or data. That's why whenever they do those sales numbers, it's directly, specifically on physical. So it makes for an interesting situation. First thing I want to talk about in regards to this is a little anecdote is Soul Calibur 2, which is known as like the best-selling Soul Calibur game, actually only sold 2.5 million physical copies between the amount of consoles that it shared, so that's Xbox, PlayStation, and GameCube. And this does not include the Soul Calibur 2 HD Online Edition that was released for 360 and the PS3. That's actually counted as a separate game. It has a different SKU and everything. So the original Soul Calibur 2 was 2.5 million copies. Now, they didn't have digital sales back then because there were no digital marketplaces. This was the PlayStation 2 era. So we're talking about like the early 2000s. But when we're going into measuring this compared to Soul Calibur 6, people are like, oh, well, Soul Calibur 6 still didn't sell as much as Soul Calibur 2. It probably destroyed Soul Calibur 2, actually. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that was in the 3 to 4 million margin because of digital sales, PC sales, things that aren't actually counted in those charts from the two companies. So when they say 2 million physical sales, that's actually a big deal because that's already 2 years ago or whatever, like passing or meeting up almost to Soul Calibur 2, which is the biggest one. So it's no doubt in my mind that Soul Calibur 6 has now become the most top-selling Soul Calibur game. Now, that's not even disputable at this point. If we're just comparing straight up the physical sales of this game compared to the physical sales of Soul Calibur 2 or Soul Calibur 3, which Soul Calibur 3 doesn't have the physical sales actually announced either because it's owned by Sony and they didn't release that. But Soul Calibur 6 definitely was the top-selling Soul Calibur game of all time. So the people that are sitting there saying that, oh, well, Soul Calibur 6 didn't sell real well, they just don't have all the information, which is why I make videos like this. That is physical-only sales. That does not include PC, that does not include the digital marketplaces, and this also doesn't include secondhand and copies moving around and things like that. So when we're going back to retail and you're going into that space, and we were talking about, like, if you're looking at the wall at GameStop, we'll, like, go to the Sony wall and we'll have the pre-owned section and the new section. They know that both of those games, both of those walls actually have monetary value assimilated to them. And even though the new section actually has a higher price point, GameStop paid more money for those copies than they did pre-owned. When they buy a pre-owned copy, they buy it for a much lower price. Let's say a game comes out day one. Regardless whether there's some kind of sale going on or not, you're probably going to get $30 trade-in credit for that game. So if you bought Soul Calibur 7 and that same day you came and didn't return it, but you wanted to trade Soul Calibur 7 in to make it a pre-owned copy for the store, you're going to get like $30 to $33 depending on the market that you're in. And sometimes it could be as low as $18, sometimes it's as high as $33, and there's also promotions and stuff or whatever. So they're buying that copy of that game for $33, and then they're going to turn around and sell it for $5 under MSRP, which it would be about $65 or $64.99 or $60, $59.99, depending on the market again. I know this changes in the world too for like Canada and stuff, but when we're actually talking about those games, now that wall has a monetary value assumed to it. So people, when they come in, they're going to look for pre-owned copies of games for sales prices, but most people want the sealed copies. But the new section is actually the smallest section because they pretty much get in pre-orders and they get in stuff that's for the inventory, and the rest of their entire systematic way of doing things is basing on pre-owned sales because that's where they actually make their profit. So nothing that they sell in that store actually counts towards the company. That's it. Full stop. The units shipped are already the units shipped, unless again they place another order as a company to the direct manufacturer to get more, to replenish some kind of to meet some kind of need that the consumers are actually saying that they want through purchasing sales and pre-orders and stuff like that, which is why pre-orders are somewhat important, even though I tend to not do it too much unless it's like a game I'm really anticipating at this point, because the pre-order market has been messed up recently as well. But so that's just like what I mean by a sale. It's different from the other kind of sale. And then we have marketing involved as well as that also, because the manufacturers can make their own deals, but they do the things at cost. So as long as they pay back and recoup their initial return on investment, they can sell for whatever they want. all in all, what I'm saying is that there's a lot of stuff that goes into what a unit sold or a unit shipped is, and it's not necessarily what we think. Because the normal nomenclature, the normal layman would go in and say, if I go to a store and I buy Soul Calibur 6 pre-owned for $16.99, or if I go and buy it at sale at Walmart for like $19.99 brand new, that counts. Like, I bought another copy. No, you didn't. The company bought the copies. You're buying the copy from the company. At that point, the company is working at a loss and trying to recoup that loss and eventually get into a profit, which is where the walls come into play. But the pre-owned wall in GameStop, let's say in particular, actually is more valued than the new wall, because people are going to pre-order their new copies and not many people are going to walk in foot traffic wise and buy a new copy of a game. They're generally going to pre-order that copy or come in the first day or the first week to pick that up, and anything else is just sitting on the wall space waiting to get bumped down until something new happens, until it's eventually spined. And new games are actually the ones that are on sale the most behind pre-owned. Like, you can think of GameStop sticker sale and stuff like that, because that space is valuable because it's such a small commodity that that product needs to get moved and shipped out so that they can make room for more product, because you can't really take up or move into another thing. It's not like you just build another shelf, because that shelf in the planogram is actually set to sell a certain amount of objects, a certain amount of items, a certain amount of numbers for that specific item, and that actually goes back to shareholders and manufacturers, and like all that data is calculated into their marketing value. So there's a lot that goes on with that, which is why they can't just like build another shelf next to it and put the Pokemon stuff over there. That's just like not how it works. Like, some stores will do that, but generally if you're a good like store leader or you have a good district leader, they're gonna like make sure the planogram is stuck to, because that can actually get included in loss prevention. So you want to make sure that that stuff is actually adhered to as much as possible. There's also marketing that goes into it that we touched on before, where like a company will send standees and marketing stuff. This is just to sell the product and move the product faster, and this is again just to free up that initial space and hopefully sell out so that the company will actually put another order in through the manufacturer. So there's a lot that's involved there, and there's a lot of nuance that goes on. The pre-owned section is actually their golden boy at GameStop in particular. Like, think about it this way: if somebody trades a bunch of games in, and they're gonna make a $30 profit on that game, that's much better than the pennies that they would get on a normal game. They might get like a couple bucks, maybe like $1 to $2 and some change on a brand new game that they sell. Consoles, they usually sell at like a loss. Like, there's like they're hoping when they sell a console that you come back and buy software. That's all that is, and accessories, because they can actually market that stuff up. So when you're going in and you're shopping and you're talking about these things, especially when it comes to like Soul Calibur upcoming, because I've heard this enough, and what does it have to do with Soul Calibur? Well, I've mentioned a lot earlier in this video, but if we're talking specifically about Soul Calibur, 2 million units shipped is not anything to scoff at when it comes to Soul Calibur. That is literally making it the top selling Soul Calibur game of all time, and that is undisputed. Whether Soul Calibur 2 sold more physical units or not, we're talking about something that is 2.5 years ago, and not to mention the fact that we didn't include digital sales or PC sales. And if you're like me, I own the game physically and digitally because of reasons, and there's other people that have the same opinion. And a lot of people just buy straight up stuff digitally anyway, because like 60% of the market is straight up digital now. So that 2 million copies is easily 3 to 4. That's just it. And they're not manufacturing any new copies of Soul Calibur 2. They're not like manufacturing new consoles that come bundled with the game that come from the manufacturer. That ship is sailed. It's 2.5. That's where it's going to stay forever. So now that we've already crossed that point, we can't just talk about physical sales. And that's just a little bit about the marketing end of it that I hope that everybody can get a little bit more better of an idea of when we're having these discussions. But before I end the video for today, I do want to say Happy New Year's Eve to everybody, and I'll see you in 2024. But I want to get to the last Soul Calibur poll that we actually did on the channel. And this was quite a while ago because I was talking about like other games in the interim. But while we're actually talking about it, it was, what do you think is the most important? Character graphics came in at 23%. Animations came in at 59%. 2% said stage graphics, and 17% said other, and you can see the comments on the screen right now. This is out of a pool of 327 votes. Again, if you want to see your comments on the screen and see the result of these polls, you can go into the community tab of this video, and you'll be able to vote on a new poll. Any and all thoughts are always welcome in the comment section down below, guys. I hope I see you on the Discord and in the comment section, and let's just have a conversation. I'll see you in another video in 2024, and as I always say, guys, I love it. Thank you.
And thank you.